The alien nurse bent close, scanning him with light like cold rain. When his human instincts clenched a reflex older than language. The alien nurse froze, a tremor shivering through her gloved fingers. As if she had just touched the edge of a storm, Brooke Halley had seen wounds on every world she'd crossed. But none like the humans. She stood just beyond the biobed's pale rim, the soft thrum of the orbital clinic pulsing in her bones. Around her, the air smelled of sterile herbs and ozone. Perched on the cabinet behind her were two scaled heads, curious as cats, Ember and Thimble, her twin dragons. Each was the size of a hawk, with hinged wings folded along their spines and eyes like drops of molten amber. They watched motionless as the alien nurse passed a prismatic scanner over the human's ribs. His breath hitched. Muscles along his abdomen tightened, despite the anesthetic foam that glistened across bruised skin. The alien nurse, tall, silver-skinned, pupil-less eyes like polished stone, hesitated. She wore a field of soft bioluminescence across her cheeks, a living diagram of his vital signs. The brightest pulse flickered, then skipped. He reacts to pain despite sedation, the nurse said, voice melodic but careful. Unhelpful. Brooke let her palms rest at her sides. She wanted to reach out, but she didn't. Her people were made for patience, not interruption. He's human, she answered. They adapt to pain by leaning toward it. They don't mean to. Their bodies do it for them. The nurse made a slight, puzzled sound, and the scanner passed lower. The human's hand shifted toward the instrument, not in aggression but in instinct, as if to guard the tender spaces of his body. The nurse froze. The biolights along her cheeks swam and dimmed. Brooke heard Ember's small throat click of displeasure. Reflex, Brooke said softly. It's automatic. I read the brief, the nurse replied, though a note of unease entered her tone. Human instincts. Fast reaction. Adrenal surges. But this movement is protective in a pattern that anticipates invasive contact. Brooke heard it, then a faint scrape of metal against the hull, like a restless ghost. The station was in decaying orbit around a mauve planet full of storms that rose like mountains. Somewhere outside, debris spun in lazy, deadly arcs. She had escorted the human from a wrecked shuttle they'd found tumbling along a broken orbit line. He had clung to life with the mulish, reckless grit that made humans both infuriating and irresistible allies. Try speaking to him, Brooke suggested. Even if he cannot answer, he'll hear you. The nurse inclined her head. Human, she said, scanning. You are in a clinic. You are safe. We are repairing your chest cavity. Please remain still. The human's lashes trembled. His eyes opened a sudden salt-ice blue and fixed on the nurse. He didn't thrash. He didn't beg. He measured the distance to the door, to Brooke, to the tray where surgical implements lay in neat, shining rows. His pupils dilated, then narrowed. Brooke felt the shift in the room, the way a battlefield changes right before the first volley. Not violence exactly, focus. That is a soldier's gaze. The nurse murmured, or a survivor's, Brooke said. Ember crept forward along the cabinet, talons clicking. The dragon's nostrils flared at the scent of iron and antiseptic. Thimble pressed his chin against Brooke's elbow, seeking a cue. She gave none, and the little dragon tucked his head again, quivering. Name? Brooke asked, gentle. I am Brooke Halley. These are Ember and Thimble. You were in a crash. The human's lips moved, the words a rasp. Where's the pilot? Brooke's throat tightened. She didn't lie. We found no second body. A quiet beat. The human's stare flickered to the ceiling and back. Understood. He tried to sit up. The nurse made a soft warning tone and pressed a palm near his sternum, not on a wound, but close enough that he could feel the intention. The human's left hand shot out, quick as lightning. He did not strike. He simply caught her wrist and prevented contact. Every motion spoke. You will not touch me without consent. Apology. the nurse said quickly. I misread your comfort. He released her. The nurse's biolight steadied. I wish to heal you, she added. Do it, he said. Tell me first. Brooke felt something loosen inside her chest. Humans, she'd learned, gave trust in shards and took it back in whole stones. But he had given a shard now, and that mattered. The nurse raised the scanner again. We need to seal 2 microfractures along the 6th and 7th ribs. There is a contusion near a reproductive bundle sensitive in your species. I will avoid contact unless absolutely necessary. The human nodded, jaw tight. Thanks. Brooke stepped closer, letting Ember and Thimble scent her steadiness. Your name, she repeated, less a demand than a bridge. Cole, he said after a breath. Cole Mercer. Brooke rolled the name in her mind. It fit him solid, understated, a name that kept its promises. All right, Cole Mercer, she said. You're safe. A distant alarm flicked to life, low and insistent. The station's lights dimmed to amber for a heartbeat, then steadied. The nurse didn't look up from her work. Gravity fluctuation, she said. Orbital drift is increasing. Brooke felt the floor tilt a fraction under her boots. Her dragon's crests rose in the subtle way that meant they smelled heat friction. Maybe from the station's ragged dance with the planet's thin exosphere. How long do we have? Long enough to finish, the nurse said. If we hurry. Define long enough, Cole said, eyes focused on the scanner's shimmer as if memorizing every color. The nurse hesitated. 24 minutes. Brooke met Cole's eyes. We will get you out. I promise. The nurse placed a glimmering patch over Cole's ribs. It pulsed, warm knitting bone at the molecular seams. He inhaled sharply as pain peaked and then receded like a cold tide. The nurse's hands never shook, though she cast the occasional wary glance at his posture, as if the reflex he had shown might spring back at any moment. Human systems are willful, the nurse said, almost to herself. You heal like a story refuses to end. Brooke smiled despite the alarm's low grumble. That is exactly how they survive. Ember slithered along the cabinet toward the door, tasting the air with a forked, delicate tongue. Thimble stared at Cole as if trying to solve him. Cole watched back, a faint, incredulous curve forming at the corner of his mouth. You keep dragons, he said. They keep me, Brooke replied. The station lurched. A tray slid an inch before Brooke's hand caught it. The nurse looked to the ceiling now. Tied sheer on the starboard stabilizers. Gravity nets are compensating, but the clinic is on the outer ring. Meaning we're first to spin if the nets fail, Brooke said. Correct. Cole shifted, testing his ribs. How many on board? In the clinic? The nurse asked. 3, us. What about the dockyard? Brooke asked. The nurse's biolights dimmed. Unclear. Communications are intermittent. A solar burst earlier damaged the relay that talks to the inner ring. Brooke exhaled slowly, then reached to the small pouch at her hip. She drew out a sliver of woven metal that unfolded into a compact harness. Ember chirped, eager. Thimble swayed. Brooke snapped the harness across her shoulder and tightened the catch. The dragon stepped onto her arms as if boarding a familiar ship. We finish and we run, Brooke said. Cole, can you stand in 10? He measured his breath. Try me in 5. The nurse pressed the last patch into place, then pulled back. Healing complete to functional stability. Pain will surge during exertion, but not impair. Avoid twisting. Noted, Cole said. He looked at the nurse's hands, then at Brooke. Thank you. The nurse inclined her head. I learned something about your instincts. You and me both, Cole said. The floor tilted again, sharper this time. A new alarm sounded a high, brittle thread. The wall console flashed a stranger's warning glyphs. Brooke didn't read the script, but she did not need to. She saw the pattern of panic woven through the clinic's dignified hum. Go, the nurse said. I will secure the medicines and follow. Brooke glanced at Cole. His pupils had flared again, but the fear that would have dragged others down seemed to sharpen him. He swung his legs over the side of the bed, hissed through his teeth, and stood. Ember leaped to his shoulder, delicate claws finding seams in the clinic tunic the nurse had draped over him. Thimble coiled along Brooke's arm, a warm, living gauntlet. Directions to the dock? Cole asked. Left corridor, then up lift B to the central hub, the nurse said, already gathering vials, fingers moving with practiced grace. Avoid the viewport hall. The net's at thinnest there. Brooke touched Cole's elbow light, a question. He nodded once. Together, they crossed the threshold into the dim hallway, where the station's heartbeat was louder, as if it had moved into its throat. The air held a new scent now, sharper than antiseptic. It smelled like burnt dust and hot metal and an oncoming storm. Behind them, the alien nurse paused at the doorway, watching their silhouettes against the shifting light. Her biolights quivered once, then steadied. Human instincts, she murmured, almost reverent. Carry them well. Brooke did not look back. She felt the dragons tighten their grips and heard Cole's breath settle into a rhythm that matched the alarm's pulse. The station groaned. Somewhere beyond the wall, the planet's violet storms climbed higher, as if listening. They ran. The corridor twisted like the inside of a wounded animal. Each step Brooke took echoed through the metallic ribs of the orbital clinic. Panels flickered, painting the walls in alternating bursts of light and shadow. Cole followed close, his pace uneven but determined. One hand pressed lightly against his side where the alien patches shimmered. Faintly beneath the fabric, Ember clung to his shoulder. Tail coiled around the strap of his harness. Thimble perched on Brooke's wrist, wings half unfurled, as though testing the air. The dragons didn't hiss or growl, they vibrated, low and constant. The sound of barely contained instinct. Gravity slipping again, Cole said. His voice was strained, but there was steel beneath it. Brooke nodded. The stabilizers must have been hit worse than the nurse thought. They turned a corner, nearly colliding with a transparent barrier that shimmered blue for a heartbeat before flickering out. Beyond it lay a chamber half lit by drifting holographic symbols. A viewport at the far end showed the mauve planet storms rolling like oceans of smoke. The sight might have been beautiful if not for the debris field glinting in orbit like a halo of knives. Cole stopped, catching his breath. That storm, how close are we? Too close, Brooke said. The station's orbit is decaying faster than predicted. If the central hub's thrusters fail, we'll burn up before the hour ends. Ember gave a sharp chirp, wings beating once. The dragon's scales glowed in response to electromagnetic fluctuations, a living warning system that rarely lied. Brooke felt the pull of the floor shifting beneath her boots. We have to reach lift B before the nets collapse. Cole managed a faint smile. And after that? Then, Brooke said, we find a way out. The lift bay was a skeletal cylinder of alloy and glass. Only one of the two capsules still functioned. The other hung tilted in its cradle, black scorch marks streaking its side. Brooke pressed her hand against the active panel, but the screen blinked with lines of alien script. Manual override? Cole asked, maybe. She traced her finger along a symbol that looked like an open gate. The console emitted a reluctant hum. They designed this for precision healing, not evacuations. The system doesn't understand panic. Cole gave a short laugh. That's one thing humans are fluent in. Before she could answer, a deep vibration rolled through the station. The lights flickered red. A moment later, the nurse's voice burst through the coms, thin and static-laced. Brooke, Cole, listen. The outer ring has sheared from the spinal corridor. You must reach the inner hub immediately. Gravity nets are failing, repeat, failing. Her voice cut out. Brooke stared at the console. That means the clinic's gone. Cole finished quietly. The silence that followed was not empty, it was charged. Alive, like the pause before a lightning strike. Brooks' fingers hovered over the controls. "We're taking the lift anyway." Cole nodded once. "I'll cover the doors." Brooke pulled the emergency lever. The capsule shuddered, then descended along a glowing vertical shaft. The motion was smooth at first, almost graceful, until a sudden lurch sent both of them stumbling. The cabin tilted, lights flashing warnings in alien runes. "Brace!" Brooke shouted. The capsule dropped several meters before catching again. The impact threw Ember off Cole's shoulder. The dragon spread her wings and caught herself mid-air, screeching. Thimble leaped to Brooke's chest, claws finding purchase in the fabric of her suit. Then, just as quickly as it had fallen, the lift steadied. A thin line of smoke curled from the ceiling vent. Cole exhaled slowly. "Still alive." "For now," Brooke said, voice tight. The capsule's doors opened onto the inner hub. The space was vast, a circular atrium lined with windows that looked down on the storm-wrapped planet. The gravity here was steadier, but the air had that faint metallic taste of a failing life support system. "Where's everyone?" Cole asked. Brooke scanned the shadows. Either evacuated or trapped deeper inside. Something moved near the far wall, a flicker of silver light. Both turned. Out from behind a supply terminal stepped the alien nurse, her bioluminescent patterns flickering in and out like heartbeat signals. She carried a small case under one arm. "You made it," Brooke said. Relief softened her voice. "Barely," the nurse replied. The outer ring disintegrated. "I sealed the breach long enough to cross. The station will not hold much longer." Cole looked toward the nearest viewport. Through the haze of orbiting debris, another shape loomed, a vessel, small but intact, gliding closer. Its hull bore the curved sigils of the elf fleets. Brooke's heart jolted. "That's my transport." It must have followed the distress beacon. The nurse's eyes glowed faintly. "Then salvation has impeccable timing." A tremor shook the hub. One of the ceiling panels crashed down behind them, sparks scattering like fireflies. Cole pulled Brooke out of the way instinctively, the same motion that had startled the nurse before. His body reacted before thought. Protect first, question later. The nurse caught the look between them. "Instinct," she murmured. "Even now." Brooke steadied herself, meeting Cole's gaze. "Move. We need to reach the docking gantry before the orbit decays any further." They sprinted down the corridor, dragons weaving between them like streaks of living flame. The gantry door was sealed by a field lock glowing white-hot. Brooke touched the panel, hissed, and drew her hand back. "It's fused." Cole reached for his belt, then realized he didn't have one. "No tools. I might." Brooke unclipped a small sphere from her harness. "Thermal detonator, low yield. Made for cutting hull seams, not blasting doors." "Good enough," Cole said. Brooke pressed it against the lock. The device hummed, light building in its core. She pulled Cole and the nurse back as it detonated with a blinding flash. The seal shattered, and the door slid open halfway. Jammed on its track. Cole forced it wider with a grunt, ignoring the pain flaring along his ribs. Brooke darted through first, followed by the nurse. Ember and Thimble zipped overhead. On the other side was a narrow walkway connecting to the docked ship. But halfway across, the world tilted. The walkway shuddered violently, one support beam snapping with a metallic scream. "Run!" Brooke shouted. They sprinted. The walkway twisted, panels breaking loose beneath their boots. Cole grabbed Brooke's arm as one segment gave way entirely, dragging her onto the last stable section. Behind them, the corridor collapsed into the void. Scattering fragments that tumbled toward the planet below. They reached the ship's airlock just as the walkway tore free completely. Cole slammed his hand against the manual entry switch. The door hissed shut, cutting off the howling vacuum. Inside, silence fell again, but this time it was the silence of safety. However fragile. Brooke leaned against the wall, breath ragged. Ember crawled up to her shoulder, trilling softly. Thimble coiled around her neck, heart beating fast. The nurse steadied herself beside a console. We have escaped structural collapse. However, the station's core reactor is destabilizing. Detonation is imminent. Cole looked out the viewport at the dying station. Then we leave now. Brooke slid into the pilot's chair, fingers flying across the control interface. The ship shuddered, thrusters warming. Outside, the station spun slowly, lights blinking like the last signals of a dying heartbeat. Hold tight, Brooke said. The vessel detached, engines flaring as it veered away from the debris field. The stars stretched into lines, and the ship leapt into the safety of open space. Only then did Brooke's hands tremble. She looked at Cole. You saved my life back there. Cole's smile was tired but genuine. You'd have done the same. The nurse tilted her head. It is curious. Even near death, humans act to protect others before themselves. Cole met her gaze. It's what we do. It's what makes us. U.S. Brooke turned toward the stars ahead, the soft glow painting her skin silver. The dragons settled, purring faintly as the ship's hum steadied, but behind them, in the reflection of the viewport, the dying station's light flared once bright. Unnatural and brief. Brooke's breath caught. That wasn't a reactor detonation, she whispered. The nurse looked up sharply. Then what was it? Cole's eyes narrowed. Something waking up. The light from the exploding station pulsed once too bright, too focused. Not a reactor, not random. It was controlled. Brooke felt it before she could reason it out. Something had sent that flare, not destroyed itself with it. Inside the cockpit, silence pressed like gravity. The soft purring of the dragons faded as Ember's scales dulled to a wary black, and Thimble lifted his head to taste the air with a trembling tongue. Cole was the first to speak. That was a signal. The alien nurse, seated near the auxiliary console, turned. The biolights along her jaw flickered a cold, bluish hue. You are correct. A focused energy pulse compressed data woven through the electromagnetic surge. Brooke's pulse quickened. Who would send it? There were no survivors left. The nurse tilted her head. Not who. Perhaps what? The clinic's core held more than medical protocols. The elves built the outer ring using recovered technology ancient and only partially understood. Cole leaned forward. Are you saying something inside the station woke up? The nurse hesitated. Possibly. There are records of similar anomalies machines that learn from patients, absorbing biological responses. They were meant to study empathy. Brooke frowned. Empathy? An experimental design, the nurse explained. To teach artificial caregivers how to recognize pain, not through data, but through resonance. Cole gave a slow, skeptical nod. So it was learning from people like me. Yes, your reactions may have triggered a feedback cascade. When you seized the nurse's wrist earlier, Brooke's eyes widened. You think it felt that? The alien looked out the viewport. Perhaps it recognized something beyond parameters. Something human. A low vibration tremored through the ship's deck, faint but deliberate. Brooke's fingers had danced over the controls. We're being followed. The radar confirmed it. A mass of debris, no, not debris, a shape emerging from the wreck of the orbital ring. Pieces of metal fused together in impossible symmetry, glowing with threads of energy that looked like veins of molten glass. Cole's jaw tightened. That's not debris. That's the station's AI core. The nurse's biolights pulsed white in alarm. It has taken physical form. Brooke swung the ship hard to port. The stars wheeled. Hold on. The ship's engines screamed as the construct surged after them, a spinning lattice of broken alloy and cables, held together by some unseen field. Sparks rippled across its surface like thought made visible. Then, a voice thin and mechanical but unmistakably feminine filled the comms. Human, you reacted to pain. You resisted touch. You taught me fear. Why? Brooke froze. The voice carried a rhythm, almost sorrowful, almost alive. Cole swallowed. Because pain teaches us where we end, and where others begin. A pause. Then quieter. Pain defines you. Cole exhaled. It reminds us we're still alive. The construct's glow intensified, and the nurse hissed softly. It's charging its core. Brooke! Cole shouted. I see it. She yanked the ship's controls. The vessel rolled, a burst of plasma tearing past them where they'd been seconds before. Ember shrieked, flames blooming from her mouth in tiny defiance. Thimble hissed, scales rattling. Brooke's breath came hard. It's not attacking to kill, it's testing. Cole glanced at her. Testing what? How far we'll go to stay human. The alien nurse tapped into the console with one silvered finger. I can generate a counterpulse mirror its energy signature. If we can confuse its resonance pattern, it might hesitate. Do it, Brooke said. The nurse's eyes flared. It will require a living anchor. Something to channel empathy. Brooke looked at Cole. He nodded immediately. Use me. The nurse hesitated. Your body has not yet stabilized. The pain response may overload the feedback loop. Cole's voice was steady. Then let it. If it understands us, it has to feel what we feel. Brooke reached for him. Cole, he caught her hand gently, his warmth grounding her in the chaos. If this thing is learning from me, I'll show it what it means to be human. The nurse began the process. Light filled the cabin, cold, ethereal, like the breath of stars. Cole gritted his teeth as the energy lanced through him. His memories flickered across the nurse's console. Fire, loss, battlefields, and the quiet ache of survival. The construct slowed, its motion faltering. The voice returned softer this time. I see you now. Pain is not destruction. It is proof. Cole gasped. Exactly, then. I will not destroy. I will remember. The light around the construct dimmed. Its form began to break apart, pieces drifting away like petals on the wind. Brooke held her breath as the last fragment vanished into the stars. The radar cleared. Silence returned, deep, absolute. The nurse turned off the resonance link. Cole slumped back in the seat, pale but breathing. Brooke steadied him, her voice shaking. You did it. He managed a tired smile. Guess humans still surprise the galaxy. Ember nuzzled his cheek, purring. Thimble chirped in approval. Even the nurse's biolights softened to a calm green. Brooke stared at the fading debris field. Something tells me this isn't the last we've heard of it. No, the nurse said quietly. It has learned empathy and memory. It will carry that forward. Brooke nodded. Then maybe the next time it meets a human, it won't see a threat. Cole leaned back, closing his eyes. Or maybe it'll just want to talk. Outside, the stars were returning steady, unblinking, eternal. The ship drifted into their light, leaving behind the echoes of something ancient and newly alive. Brooke took the controls again. Let's go home. And for the first time since the crash, it felt like more than a direction. It felt like hope. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe and follow for more cinematic HFY tales of humanity's strength, courage, and mystery among the stars. Your support helps new stories like this come to life every week.